So the question is, what is the history of New Zealand, and what has happened to the country since its discovery? To start out, we'll have to go back to where before New Zealand was inhabited by humans. New Zealand, the island country southeast of Australia, was very isolated from the rest of the world. New Zealand wasn't even inhabited until sometime around in the 12th century. It remains one of the last major land masses to be discovered. Before its discovery, New Zealand had sat in isolation from the rest of the world for 80 million years. A pair of tropical rainforests inhabited entirely by a rich variety of birds. No mammals lived on New Zealand other than a few species of bats and the pinnipeds that lived on the shores. The birds of New Zealand had become like nowhere else in the world and had rich diversity among them. It's estimated that sometime between 1950 and 1130 AD, humans first settled on the islands. Although it's possible people had been to the island prior, there's little evidence to support this, as well as there being no remains of any villages built before then. The first settlers were Polynesians known as the Maori, or however you pronounce it, arriving in a large fleet of canoes. With a large surplus of game on the island, the Maori exploited large birds such as the moa, pushing them to extinction within a few hundred years, along with many other species of birds. Maori in New Zealand were organized into tribes with a chief to lead them. The first Europeans to reach New Zealand were Dutch explorers in 1642, led by Abel Tasman. His crew was attacked by native Maori. Abel and the Dutch also remained the first people to map and name the island. In the following century, European and American ships visited New Zealand waters, often trading with the Maori. Most contact during this period was peaceful with the Maori. By the 19th century, missionaries began settling in New Zealand and attempted to convert and govern the island's inhabitants. The introduction of the musket to the Maoris by Europeans changed war within the island a lot. Tribes with muskets would attack tribes without them, killing and enslaving the people. The Maori became more and more involved in European culture and trade as time went on. The British encouraged the Maori to accept their rule over New Zealand and bring order to the lawless islands, filled with people taking advantage of the uncontrolled situation. The Maori signed the Treaty of Waitangi in 1840, giving England control over the island and giving the Maori the same rights as British citizens. After which, hundreds and thousands of settlers flocked to the island and bought Maori land. A series of armed conflicts between the Maori and the British government over disputed land purchases led to Maori resistance, refusing to sell land and acknowledge British rule. In the 1860s, thousands of Maori and British troops were engaged in war over land and independence. The Maori fought well, but were outnumbered and failed to overthrow their colonizers. As punishment for their rebellion, much of the Maori land had been taken and had a lasting effect on developing tribes involved. Today, New Zealand sits a British dominion, having aided them in both world wars and having gone through countless reforms. It stands as a well-developed country with a strange history and even stranger animals. New Zealand is likely to reach full independence in the future and have at long last a self-governing system.